Yeah, you just got to see me jam out. I threw something into this recording. I want to test something out and see how it goes. But I got to tell you right now, ladies and gentlemen, today's the day. Let's mark it on your calendars. June 23rd, 2025. I am officially pissed off. All right. I First of all, I put together a recording for the next episode yesterday, and I did the whole half hour, and I go to get the recording, and I realize it stopped recording at some point for whatever reason at like a minute 8. And I said some things in that recording that absolutely, well, they didn't come true per se based on what I said initially, but something had happened in that same realm. But let me backtrack a little bit. This is why I'm pissed off. Game 3, Cubs versus Mariners. Cubs lose that series to the Mariners. Mariners are a good team this year. They're second in their division in the American League. But the Cubs, and I said this on like the last episode, and I know I posted the little short for it. The Cubs have some bullpen issues still. And yesterday's game, they put themselves in a position, albeit late in the game, to where it was only a 3-run deficit. Colin Ray not doing so well, and again, he started the season as a bullpen guy. He got thrust into the starting role when Justin Steele went down. He's been doing well. He has a 4-3 record right now. But again, a bullpen guy, starting to maybe see all these extra innings taking a toll on the old man. Yeah, and you know what? The sad thing is he's probably younger than I am, but as far as baseball goes, he's probably what they would consider an old man. But in yesterday's game, you end up getting to your offense puts you in a position where you're just down 3 runs. So the game's still pretty manageable, right? Let's just say it is. So we get to let's just look at from the bottom of the 5th inning on, okay? At this point, at the bottom of the 5th inning, it's 6-4 Mariners. Manageable game. You got about half the game left to go, right? You come out top of the 6th, boom. You give up 2 more runs. So you go into the bottom of the 6th, and then now it's 8-4. Still no big deal. Mariners go out and score 2 in the top of the 7th after you threw up a goose egg. So now it's 9-4. Boom, Cubs come back out in the bottom of the 6th, put up 2 more runs. It's 9-6. It's completely manageable, and you bring in Nate Pearson. And you just recalled this guy, and he was struggling to begin with. So this guy goes out, and he essentially gives up 5 runs in the 8th inning. Mariners put the game out of reach. Cubs lose 14-6. So again, there's still some bullpen issues. Nate Pearson gets optioned to the minors today after that performance. And in the recording that didn't happen yesterday, and you can all roll your eyes, I'll give you a second. Okay, there you go. And yes, I absolutely said, after the Genesis Cabrera DFA situation, I absolutely felt that maybe Nate Pearson was going to be DFA'd as well. But the dude had options left. So the Cubs just sent him right back down to the minor leagues, and they bring up Michael Fulmer. And that's great because, okay, so I do believe there were a few times, the last time Michael Fulmer pitched with the Cubs, that I was on his ass. But I'm thinking the dude actually pitched pretty well during his stint with the Cubs. We're going to see if this guy's back to where he was at one point in his career. So he pitches for the Cubs in 2023. He's got a 3-5 record with them, 4.42 ERA. He pitched in 58 games. Not the greatest, but I do believe there was a stretch in there where he was pretty good. 57 innings for the Cubs in 2023. But here's the deal. He came into the game in a situation where he needed to hold things down. And in 57 games, he had 11 holds. He did have 2 saves, blew 3 of them, 5 save opportunities. So not a big, not a lot to go on with Michael Fulmer, but we're going to see. We're going to see if this guy, as a veteran, can actually help out the Cubs and the Cubs bullpen, because you're getting into a stretch of games here in the next 7 days. You're playing the Cardinals for 4 and the Astros for 3. Astros are leading their division. Cardinals are just a few games behind the Cubs. So this is kind of like a make or break series for you, basically leading up to the All-Star break. I think there's another series there after. Let me check it out. Another series there after these next 7 games before the actual All-Star break. But we want to make sure, we don't want to get ahead of ourselves here, because the way the calendars run, you just never know, right? So you got to check things out. You got to put in the work. You got to do your due diligence. Now, let's see. So the Cubs end June, 4 against the Cardinals, 3 against the Astros. They got Monday off, the 30th. So then they start July, and they got to face the Guardians, and then the Cardinals again, right? Then you hit the Twins, then the Yankees, and then you hit the All-Star break. So All-Star break, and yeah, this is my brain fart moment for an old guy, because it's hard for me to remember exactly when it happens. Middle of July, first week of July, second week of July. I'm always like, it just pops up on me, oh shit, no, there's no games for 3 or 4 days, because here we are into the All-Star break. Let me turn on the home run derby, right? But I mean, the schedule for the Cubs right now is tough. You got the Cardinals, you got the Astros, you got the Guardians, you got the Cardinals again, then you hit the Twins and the Yankees. And you know what? Man, you're in New York. You're at the Yankees for those games. So that ought to be interesting to see. But right now, yeah, I'm a little pissed off. Cubs lost that series against the Mariners. Yeah, I know you can't win them all. And the Cubs have absolutely been doing really well. So I just had to get that out there. I got the podcast now, so, instead of making those Facebook posts, I'll just throw it up here on the podcast. And then I might just put a Facebook post out there that says, hey, all the pissed offness that the Cubs and Bears did that I would normally post about on Facebook are in the podcast. So go ahead and listen, right? So anything I can try to do to get listenership up. So that's it. That's the Cubs news I got for this episode, because as of this recording, we're waiting patiently for the Cubs-Cardinals series to begin tonight. All right? So we wanted to get into a couple of more ball players from the Sporting News Top 100 baseball players of the 20th century. But now, we've been doing a little bit more research, and I'm kind of glad that recording yesterday didn't actually take place, because I went over 4 players, well, 3 players from the list, and 1 player I thought maybe should have made the list. But there was a few like discrepancies that that shot out to me, and then my memory wasn't like working. It wasn't all there. Look, part of the reason why I do this podcast is I'm getting these recordings on the record for my kids and my family, because I'm going to tell you what, I took a lot of blows to the head growing up. And with everything I do read about CTE, I do have a concern for that. And so sometimes, while I may feel the memory is still top notch, and I can usually dial in, work each dial, left, right, up, down, left, right, up, down, left, right, up, down, until I can get the right frequency and remember things, almost verbatim, word for word type deal. But lately, there's been a few things that have been escaping the old noggin. So we did 3 players that were on the list, and then 1 player who wasn't, because he kind of compares with a player on the list, and then the episode didn't actually record, and now we're fine with that because we actually did a little more investigating and a little more digging, and we're going to go on record and say that we do have some issues with this list, but as a whole, as far as just saying it's baseball players in general, there's parts you can agree with on this list. Definitely some things that you don't. And today's episode, this might spark some controversy because I decided to knock the other 2 guys off the list, the 3rd guy who was on it and the one who I wanted to make the comparison with, because I decided to look at 2 other players on this list. And for, not because they weren't great baseball players, but because there's some controversy with these 2 dudes who are on this list. So what you have to remember is it's a book I took off my shelf. It's a book I've read on multiple occasions. And so I got to thinking, hey, on all the podcast places that you list your podcast, you are your topic or whatever categories, you have sports listed. So it's sports related. So yeah, I'm going to hit you with that. But sorry, I got to laugh because my fat ass fingers hit the caps lock button. So this came up. It looked like SpongeBob was talking there for a minute. For all you old folks, that's a cartoon character who's a sponge. He lives under the sea in a pineapple, as a matter of fact. I wanted to talk. Barry Bonds comes in on the list at number 34. Now, for a pure baseball player, for what Barry Bonds accomplished, if you came from another country and said, here's the criteria for what we term the best, here's a list of the players who meet that criteria, and you looked at the paperwork, you'd be like, yeah, this dude absolutely belongs on the list. I feel if you look at that criteria and that's all you judge it by, maybe he should be higher at number 34, because the dude accomplished some major things in the realm of baseball. All right, we know he's of baseball legacy. This is Bobby Bonds Sr.'s son. He comes into the league. Dude plays for like 22 years or whatever. He's top of the list for major league home runs, right? He boom, rose right to the top. At one point, the next guy I'm going to talk about on the list hit 70 home runs during one season, and Barry was like, yeah, hold my beer. And a couple of years later, he hits like 73. He's absolute great baseball player. Never plays with his dad. I think dad's out of the game by the time, Barry starts competing. But he has unbelievable stats. Well, I think he leads all of Major League Baseball in maybe both walks and intentional walks. I just know the dude, it's like, and I was of that opinion. See, I'm one of these guys who absolutely believes if you're coaching and you're playing a team that has a superstar, everybody knows this dude's a superstar. Why would you let that dude beat you? Put him on base. If the situation calls for it, put him on base. Hell, take a gamble. Bases loaded, this dude comes up. Maybe you're leading by 2, and you think you can get it done. Put him on base. Walk him, right? So, career leader, the all-time leader in intentional walks in Major League Baseball is Barry Bonds. He was intentionally walked 688 times. That is unbelievable to me, right? The only player to ever be intentionally walked more than 400 times. Albert Pujols is next on the list with 316. For the guy to get intentionally walked almost 700 times, but still lead all of the major leagues in home runs with 762. He ends his career with just under, and I'm talking just under. It's like you're like there's the red tape, there's the finish line, and you're just about to cross it, and boom, someone else crosses it. But the dude ends his career with a 298 batting average. You can't argue that Barry Bonds is not one of the greatest baseball players to play the game. And as I mentioned, Mark McGwire is also on this list. And here's another dude. He comes in at number 91 on our list. So in yesterday's episode that I thought was recording, I was comparing Mark McGwire to Sammy Sosa only because I'm a Cubs fan, and McGwire plays, like half his career for the Cardinals, more than half his career. I'm not exactly sure. But they had that neck-and-neck race in 1998. Mark McGwire ends up with 70 home runs, and I think Sammy ends up with 65. And then I was kind of looking at the numbers, and Sammy, as a career, had better numbers than Mark. So I started wondering why Sammy wasn't on this list, but Mark was. So part of me said, okay, the writers and analysts at the time that put this list together, maybe Sammy was right there, kind of neck and neck with Mark, and then there were just 9 better ball players than Sammy who deserved to round out 92 through 100. And so I got to do more digging on that too, and it turns out Mark McGwire had a better on-base percentage and a better OPS and better slugging percentage than Sammy Sosa throughout the career, and Sosa ended up playing 2 more years. So now I get why Mark McGwire is on this list and not Sammy Sosa. But to talk about these two players, Barry Bonds and Mark McGwire, you've got to absolutely talk about the steroid scandal in Major League Baseball. Because I'm going to tell you right now, this list, this book, it came out in 1998. So I think at this point, Mark McGwire retires in, oh my goodness, let's see, when did he actually retire? 2001, I think. Yeah, he makes his last appearance for the Cardinals in October of 2001. So this list comes out in 98, right? And then you look at Barry Bonds, and he plays until 2007. This list came out in 1998, right? So in 2010, Mark McGwire kind of admits to using steroids. I mean, dude's got another brother, I believe, who was like a top prospect or a draft pick of the Seattle Seahawks. I think the Seahawks thought he was going to be the end-all, be-all at their quarterback position at the time that Mark's brother was drafted. But he's a bodybuilder now, or that might be a different brother, right? So you look at Mark McGwire when he came up with Jose Canseco. They were the Bash brothers with the A's. Kind of a skinny kid, right? I think he goes over 6 foot. So he's a big dude. And he just gets bigger by the time he leaves baseball. And then Barry Bonds, you see all those photos of him coming up with Pittsburgh, and he's a pretty skinny dude, still a good sized dude, but then his head gets super big and his hat size goes up 4 notches. But he actually goes on trial during the steroid scandal. So you've got to look at these two players, so you got to wonder why, and I get why, because the trial and Mark McGwire's admitting to using steroids, they all took place after the list. So now I will, in all fairness, let you know that I did not look into see if they're not going to be taken off the list. At this time, based on pure baseball stats, you put the numbers on paper, and these guys, they were great ball players. There's many people on one side of the issue that say steroids made baseball better. Other dudes are like, it's too, you got to be pure for the game. Well, what was pure for the game? You know, for a lot of guys on this list, I mean, if Mickey Mantle's on this list, you look at guys like that, and you know, there were no steroids back in their day, but dude, it was like freaking Marlboro Lights, not even Marlboro Lights, probably Camels unfiltered, and then just shots and beer and just partying. And they came out and they played baseball and they put their numbers up and they got their names in the record books. But yeah, as I've said on other podcasts, the game has changed. Everybody's working out now. There's a lot of pressure to compete. There's a lot more spots available for people, so you got to keep up with the game. And this whole steroid scandal, there's an entire list of dudes who've been suspended. I mean, we know Manny Ramirez was suspended. A-Rod was on that list. You got to take it for what it is. But I kind of wanted to address these two ball players. Barry Bonds coming in at number 34 and Mark McGwire coming in at 91. There's some controversy with both dudes. The whole steroid scandal deal. McGwire admits to it. Bonds goes on trial. You know, you have to take it and make your own decisions. Do you include them on this list, or do you say they don't deserve to be on this list? Because I don't know, if you take them off of something so insignificant as a list like this, you almost got to take them off all the lists pertaining to Major League Baseball. You know, they were out of the game by the time a lot of this crap happened, so nobody did anything. Barry Bonds is your home run leader, right? 762. He leads in intentional walks, most walks as well, I believe. Both guys were great baseball players. So that's all we got for you today, folks. I know I only hit 2 more on the list, but as I delve more into the list, as I've said before, there's a lot of guys on this list we don't know. So we might just tell you the numbers that they came in and who they are. And if you decide you want to go look them up and research it for yourself, more power to you. But we're also going to finish out this season strong in about 5 or 6 more episodes. So we're not going to bore you with something that's been out there for, let's kind of do the math. No, we don't like math. We were an English teacher for a reason. But we definitely know it's been out there for about 27 years. We just thought it'd be fun to hit on it. We had the book. Why not, right? So there it is. That's all we got for you this week, folks. I hope you enjoyed the show. Peace.